Auburn's situation when it comes to recruiting quarterbacks, it could go in a million different directions.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It's Recruiting Thursday. We're joined by Brian Smith, host of The Portal, Locked On's new national recruiting show on recruiting, as well as the portal, as well as NIL. All of it, very important stuff in today's age of college football. We're going to talk about the four quarterbacks, Brian, the four quarterbacks that are being tied to Auburn the most right now. And man, that seems like that could change from week to week. But right now, Landon Duckworth, Travis Burgess, Keisean Henderson, and of course, Jared Curtis, the five-star who has locked down several official visits. Of course, Auburn is part of that. Jared Curtis seems to be the home run swing here. Brian, the likelihood of Auburn pulling off Jared Curtis is what? What would you say?
10 to 20%. That would be my guess.
That sounds, I would probably say 10%. I would say 20% seems high.
You are an Auburn fan.
That's true.
You have been beaten to death.
And we've been fine on quarterback recruiting as of late. It's just, keeping them on campus or, development. That's kind of been the bigger question here. But let's don't dismiss the fact, and this is a factor in this, that Auburn currently has two former five-stars in their quarterback room already. And if you're a highly rated quarterback like Jared Curtis is rated higher than these other guys, path to playing time, it has to be part of your sales pitch. And if you're recruiting Jared Curtis, if you're Hugh Freeze and they've done the in-home visits and all of that, that's got to be something you talk about. And with Jackson Arnold having 2 years left of eligibility, and then obviously Deuce Knight hasn't played a snap in college football yet, but a five-star who's expected to be the next guy, that has to be a part of this entire equation.
Well, I think all of that makes this really hard for a quarterback, Jared or otherwise.
Sure.
They haven't developed guys. The depth chart's kind of funky because I've got a five-star in front of me, but he's a different kind of player than I am. He hasn't played. How do I evaluate this? Oh, by the way, Jackson Arnold could come back for 2026 as well. The chances for a big-time quarterback playing next year that Auburn signs is next to zero. Most of them are okay with that. Jared, on the other hand, there's some schools he could pick where he might play right away.
Sure.
So it gets really hard to pick. And for those that don't know, South Carolina, Georgia, Oregon, Auburn are the four OVs. Now that could change, and there could be other schools thrown into the mix, but those are the ones that I've heard the most. Jared is an original commitment to the Dogs about a year ago. He was committed, backed off of that, and kind of looked at the broader picture, and he is, quote unquote, off a computer screen, 6'3", 225, built like an ox. And he has, John Elway is arguably the greatest prospect ever. He's in that mold, though, in terms of physically, you're just okay, this is a little different. So
yeah, then you hear him talk, and it's this guy is a D1 quarterback. This is the guy you put in front of the media to represent your program, too. I mean, he's all of it.
A buddy of mine covers Georgia closely, and they have him definitively number one on their board.
Sure.
And I get it. So
I asked you the likelihood of Auburn landing Jared Curtis. What if Deuce Knight wasn't here? What if they got a 3-star quarterback or something who was the next guy? It's a totally different thing. So Deuce Knight is such a key part of this entire thing. And as he should be. I mean, I think Deuce Knight is exceptional. You and I have talked about Deuce Knight a ton, but some people roll their eyes at this, Brian, and we had this conversation on your show, The Portal, earlier this week, but can you pay, let's assume quarterbacks are getting these reported $7 million or seven-figure deals, these $1 million deals. Can you pay Jackson Arnold, Deuce Knight, and a guy like Jared Curtis when two of those guys aren't going to play? Can you do that in today's age of college football? That's a big risk when you could, spend that money beefing up your offensive line or your wide receiver room or defensive tackle, which is certainly, a place where Auburn needs to bolster their roster more this offseason. It's just a tricky situation. It's I keep saying it over and over again, there's not a salary cap, but there is because you only have so much money.
Well, here's the thing I was just contemplating in my mind as we speak.
Okay.
Auburn might have told the Curtis camp, like, look, we think the world of Deuce, which I know they do. But if he comes in and for whatever reason it's a bomb or he wants to leave, you need to prepare for the worst case scenario. I don't want to make it too dramatic, but like the U.S. military looks at things from worst case, they have to. Quarterback recruiting is that way too, because if it goes south, you are absolutely in a bind. So they're going to recruit him like we have nobody after this year. Everybody's out of eligibility. And if everything, like if Deuce turns it on in spring and it's just elite, they'll tell him, like, look, he's taking that step. They'll probably cut bait with each other. But if it's open-ended, and I imagine Jared will come down for a spring practice, he thinks that he can beat him out, then it's game on. That's how I would look at it. And I know Jared a little bit. He's a confident kid. He is not afraid of anything.
Sure.
So I think the money would play on basically if we were all right and Deuce Knight is as good as they think. It's smart to at least recruit him through spring ball, set up the business.
Agreed. That's a great
They
point.
have nothing to lose. They're not spending any money yet.
Yeah, no, that is a great point. That is a great point. But even the timing of Jackson having 2 years is tricky when you look at the Deuce Knight situation. Like, I think the timing actually makes more sense for this class to add a Jared Curtis, unless Jackson's so great. I mean, best case scenario is he's fantastic and he goes to the league, right? Like that's the goal, and then everything fixes itself. But yeah, I mean, it almost seems like you got to go every other year when it comes to quarterback recruiting now. And then the stat that On3 put out, you and I have texted about it. We talked about it on your show earlier this week, the portal. Check it out wherever you get your podcast. But 60% of top 10 quarterbacks transfer now. Like, that's amazing. That's amazing.
From 21 through 24, it's 60%. It used to be 45, 50%. Doesn't sound like a big jump, but another 10%. And again, these aren't just, run of the mill, the kid that goes to the bottom of the barrel of P4. We're talking about anybody.
Right.
And the top 10 is exactly on par. 9 out of the last 15 guys that I looked at, like top 5 for each like class, same thing. Like anyway, I broke it down, 60%. So,
which that means they're more likely to leave at some point than to stay. Like that is what that means.
That is crazy. But everybody knows that they have a chance to change their financial future, because let's look at it this way. There's a school out there right now that doesn't think there's a chance in the world that their starting quarterback will be gone after this year, and he's going to ball out, go to the league, and they're going to be stuck.
Sure.
We all know everybody buys people off of their rosters. We can sit there and pretend it doesn't happen. It happens daily.
Yeah, sure.
I just got off a conversation with a guy that's a 7-on coach. It happens daily. So you have to be prepared in both directions. Cover your bases. If it works out and Jackson has a great year and comes back, I mean, Auburn's smelling the roses, but if he turns pro, that's the other end of this. Like, this could sour in the spring, but if Jackson and Arnold just goes bonkers, they beat Georgia, they beat Bama, something like that, and they go 10-2, make the playoff, then he leaves.
But then the plan is Deuce Knight at that point, though.
Who's your backup? You can't go into a season with a running quarterback and nobody else.
Oh, you're
That's
right.
the other part. Like a running quarterback, he's going to, like, I know Deuce, he's a freak. He's got a 42-inch vertical. He's still going to get hit. You don't have a backup, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, you're not going to be, and I think this is a little underrated, and some people are going to roll their eyes because I think Deuce is better than this player, but like getting a guy like Ashton Daniels to transfer to Stanford, like that's not going to happen every year. Like that is a truly perfect, underrated signing, even if he never plays a down.
Yes,
Brian. It's a big signing because of what he does culturally, what he does from depth, what he does as far as running practice and in meeting rooms. Like, you can't understate how big of a signing that is. And that's just not going to happen that often.
I met him when he was still in high school, getting ready to go into his senior year at Buford. Great guy. He fit Stanford to a T. And if you know anything about Stanford, they beat to a little bit different drum. Like academically, that's like, we're taking on the world all today.
Yeah.
So if you can handle that, SEC football is hard. Stanford's a whole nother deal. He will be as prepared as possible to help everybody in the room. And Deuce is going to need some of that. By the way, it doesn't hurt to have another guy from Buford on your roster.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point too. I actually keep forgetting that he's from this part of the country, but yeah, that's another great element to this for sure. All right, what if Auburn misses on Jared Curtis, which we both think is the likely option here? Where else could they go? There's a few names that are kind of being thrown out there. Let's jump into maybe who's the best fit next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. They've got some futures out there for this upcoming football season. Auburn, a 1.5-point favorite at Baylor. Right now, I got a feeling that line will move. There are theories of it moving in Auburn's favor. There's theories in it moving in Baylor's favor. So if you like it where it's at, go ahead and get in on the action there. Or, hey, you can bet on Auburn basketball to win the NCAA Men's Championship at plus 400 odds. Vegas likes the Tigers. I do too. Right now, new customers can bet they can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your one shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA, and of course, the Locked On Podcast Network. Brian Smith, our guest, he hosts The Portal every single day, usually multiple times a day. Be sure to check out The Portal. The same way you're watching this show, you can watch The Portal. There kind of seems to be another tier, obviously, below Jared Curtis when it comes to Auburn's quarterback recruitment. Keisean Henderson, Travis Burgess, Landon Duckworth. I have a personal favorite. I like Travis Burgess a lot. I like him a ton. But as far as fit, Brian, you know how all of these guys play stylistically. Who's the best fit when you talk about fitting into Auburn's offense?
Keisean.
Keisean.
He's my #1 player in the nation for college football.
Okay.
For long term, if you said, Brian, gun to head, you are the Arizona Cardinals in 4 years, 5 years, give me Jared Curtis. He's the safest.
Okay.
His frame, I mean, he looks like he's 25 years old, except from the neck up.
Sure.
So, but Keisean in college, in the offense that, well, a lot of guys run. I mean, it's RPO like Kiffin, Malzahn, obviously what they got going on with Freeze. Anybody RPO based, Keisean, you can't tackle him in a phone booth, and he's 6'3", 185 pounds. Mm-hmm. He's going to be 205, 210. He's basically and even more athletic in terms of just pure speed and shiftiness of a certain left-hander that is signed with Auburn. I mean, he's just right-handed. That's the only real difference. They're the same kind of guy.
So Keisean commits to Houston
really early, yeah. But they were here's the backstory. They were the only one that flat told him you can play quarterback. Then he went out this past year and killed it at quarterback, and everything changed. Nobody believed he could play it. Then he proved everybody wrong, myself included. I even had a conversation with him. I'm like, dude, you went way, way past where I thought you would be just in 1 year. He just kind of looked at me funny. I'm like, just trust me, you're way better. And he's able to throw second level passes between guys. His understanding of post snap has just went up exponentially. And if you are able to get a pass rush on him, good luck for you. If anybody gets out of the realm, like he can score on a busted play from 80 yards. Kind of reminds me in a way like Kyler Murray. Be careful if you blitz him. You're asking for a lot because if they miss in the backfield, it goes very poorly.
Yeah, it's bad. Right.
It's same deal. So, and he's got an arm. I didn't realize Keisean's arm was that good until I saw him play live, and I'm standing right behind him at the Battle 7-on-7 tournament in South Florida, and he just roasted people. So I'm like, okay, now it's different.
So it seems like last month there was kind of this next wave of offers, your more elite offers. Auburn offered them last month, North Carolina, which means Bill Belichick, which is still wild to think about. Ole Miss, Georgia, Florida State, they're all throwing offers now towards this guy, which begs the question, like, how committed is he to Houston? Because it doesn't really feel like he's that committed to Houston.
Well, this is how I look at it. I tell everybody this when they say, we got so-and-so committed. He just got offers from such and such. I always ask the same question. Has he put out anything on social media or during an interview that said he's shutting his recruitment down? If the answer is not emphatically no, there's a chance.
Yeah, sure.
So that's where we're at. Like Keisean had mentioned to me Florida State, Georgia, LSU, and during the same term, he mentioned some other schools, Auburn. And now it looks like Auburn, Florida State might be two of them for sure.
You think Auburn and FSU are in it?
They're 100%.
Okay.
100. And again, I know it's kind of ironic because Malzahn coach at Auburn, like it's the offense. Like, can you imagine somebody that athletic in Gus's offense? Well, it's really no different than in Hughes. It's the same principle. Offense, you just throws it a little bit more. But the RPO is there. He makes the right read.
Yeah.
It's there's really not much you can do against him. It's impossible. And you know it's coming. Can you tackle him? The answer usually is no.
All right. So yeah, that's Keisean Henderson from Texas. His high school name is Legacy, the School of Sports Sciences. That's awesome. Yep. Mouthful, but that's an awesome name.
It's just outside of Houston. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Which makes sense. The commitment there. Travis Burgess, we've talked about him before at Grayson. 3-star guy. Some places don't even have him ranked yet. I don't think On3 has him ranked yet. But a guy that like passes the eye test, a guy who has the frame, a guy who's played at a high level at one of the best programs in the Southeast. I mean, I think you've said it before. Grayson's one of the top programs in the country. 100%. Try not to be dramatic here, but yeah. And so, like, to me, it seems like Auburn's just kind of early on this guy. Your thoughts on Travis Burgess, the high school quarterback out of Grayson?
Well, I saw him this past weekend. It's the first time I saw him from 5 feet away to kind of size him up. And I'm always leery when I see heights of 6'3" or above. Travis is 6'3" or above. He's a big dude. And he was at the Under Armour camp in Carrollton, just outside Atlanta. Natural throwing motion, can throw to his left. When he's a right-handed quarterback role, they put him in awkward spots on purpose just to judge what they can do in the spotlight. He can spin it. Was he perfect? No, but he's got a natural throwing motion, cannot teach the frame, and he's got the right demeanor for quarterback. He's not a guy that got too high or too low, regardless of how the last rep went. And if you're an SEC quarterback, if you're too emotional, that will end poorly. So that was a good sign. Playing again at Grayson probably helps a lot. They had multiple kids at the camp. Shocker, it's Grayson, but that's the way it should be there. Gwinnett County is my favorite county in the country for high school football, and they're right in the middle of it. That is a great breeding ground to learn the position because you're going to get the crap beat out of you.
Yeah.
And he's the guy that can get you to the state final. So in a year or two, I mean, he'll need a year or two of development. He could be your guy. But if, like you were saying earlier, it's hard to go 5-star. If Auburn were to sign Burgess, I'd be cool with it. I actually had John Garcia Jr. on my show earlier today, the portal. He loves the kid and his upside. And he's like, he thinks Auburn, that's who Auburn will get. That's kind of how I took it. I didn't ask him directly, but the fit is there. They've got a connection to the school. It's close. Georgia's not after him. The stars seem to be aligning for that to be the most likely pick for the Tigers.
Yeah, and I think there's more elements to this. Let's jump into what exactly those are in just a second, right here on Locked On Auburn. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. For your second listen, go watch or listen to The Portal. The same way you're checking out this show right now, go check out Brian's show, The Portal. He's putting up a ton of content over there. But when you look at Travis Burgess, and I think we could put Landon Duckworth in this conversation too, it's like it'd be great for Auburn to land Jared Curtis or Keisean Henderson. But as far as, once again, the timing of everything with Deuce and the questions of like, how long is Jackson Arnold going to be at Auburn? I think it's easier to sell to a guy like Travis Burgess, who maybe you're a little bit early on, who's not a day one starter at pretty much any SEC program, but could develop into a starter at some point. I think it makes more sense to go after a guy like this, not only from a timing standpoint, but from an NIL standpoint as well. I'm assuming these guys will demand less NIL money than some of these higher rated quarterbacks. I think a guy like Travis Burgess makes a ton of sense.
I can't see how it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Close to home, program you're familiar with, kid that can run. He's not Keisean.
Have you interviewed Burgess?
No, I didn't interview him. I didn't have a chance to interview him, but just from talking to other people that did have been around him. Yeah. Subdued, chill kid. He'll fit in at Auburn like a glove. So that's also very important. And I just think that it's an easy deal. He's going to visit, I think, in March, from what I remember.
I think it's May. I just had it pulled up.
Well, for unofficial. Unofficial.
Okay.
May will be OVs or May and June.
Yeah, May 30th is his official visit that he's got down.
I will go ahead and make this prediction now. He will be committed to Auburn before May 30th. That would be my prediction.
You think?
Yes.
Why do you think that? Do you think that's like, hey, go ahead, like we want our quarterback early, go ahead and get in the boat, or do you think it's something else?
Both. I think it's both because I do I think Curtis is going to end up at Auburn? As I said earlier, no. I know that's like pie in the sky, perfect scenario, but 5 stars usually don't hang out together on quarterback depth charts for very long. And I don't know how many other programs have committed to him early. This is something I talk about on my show, your show, every show. Relationships. They got in on Burgess early. That has to count for something. I just think that at quarterback, and by the way, as a last part, Auburn's receiver room is attractive. It's not hard to sell that. So why wouldn't he come? If Georgia's not going to take you, Clemson's not going to take you. That's another school recruits Atlanta hard. Tennessee's got their guy. Like, where's he going? That's a big box school. Bama's not going to take, where's he going? Auburn's his best bet, in my opinion. Georgia Tech or somebody like that, maybe, but SEC poll is pretty darn strong.
I'm looking at his offer, and this is according to 247. I'm just scrolling through. It looks like Mississippi State is his only other offer, according to this. And then, looks like Boston College was early.
He's probably gotten a few here recently.
Wake, a lot of ACC schools here. Virginia Tech.
How many of those schools carry the weight of a Southeastern Conference school? That's the thing. I mean, maybe he's got a connection to some other institution.
Sure. I mean, I would think the most attractive schools, not Auburn on this list. Mississippi State, just because of the SEC thing, and
they got their offense would be fun, but they just don't have enough.
Could be if they figure it out, right? And then Virginia Tech and Duke, to me. I think they're below Auburn, but I'm just saying, if I'm trying to nitpick, try to find
Duke's a great school.
A weakness and all those.
But they won 9 games last year. It was like them winning a Super Bowl.
But they've had successful quarterbacks there lately.
They have, but they now have a defensive coach too. So
that matters.
He's good. He's good.
That matters. Sure. All right, last guy, Landon Duckworth, in-state guy, which I do think is a factor. Jackson, Alabama. They're recruiting some of his teammates, right? Which I think is a factor always. And then Hugh Freeze and the staff, it's a point of pride. It's a point of effort that they want to win the state. And he's going to be one of the top guys in the state. So how do you think Auburn handles Landon Duckworth?
This is the one I was actually talking to Garcia about too, on and off the air. We both like him a lot. Smooth kid, 6'3", 6'4". He's the kind of kid that will YouTube you on a basketball court with a dunk, but he's also able to drop back and throw dimes from the pocket.
Yeah.
He's a similar player to Keisean Henderson. He's not fun to blitz. You better be really careful, but he's got a big arm. Mm-hmm. So he's a kid that's also played pretty good competition in Mobile, been a part of a successful program. Xavier Kroll is a player, just incredible running back that he plays with. He knows what it was supposed to look like. Florida State is the team to kind of watch with him. Gus almost had him committed at UCF. Now he's at Florida State as a coordinator. Does Auburn go all in on him? What's the deal? I mean, he's a great fit for the offense Auburn runs, and he's in state. I'm a little surprised, at least unless something's changed, that they haven't pushed more, to be really honest.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like South Carolina's a big threat as well.
He committed to them really early.
I don't think I knew he was committed there. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, early in his sophomore year, nobody knew about him. And he goes what? South Carolina for a Mobile kid? And once he blew up and we knew he would, he backed off.
Yeah, he decommitted last June from there.
Yeah, Georgia is even recruiting him now. Georgia's uber picky about quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm. So
especially if if Jared Curtis told Georgia no to pound sand and Georgia started to go, I think Freeze would be more inclined. They don't want Georgia getting a quarterback in Alabama, I guarantee.
Sure. Yeah. And you can't take 2.
Yeah. So that's the dynamics of quarterback recruiting, because of what you just said, make timing really important. Really?
I think from a scholarship standpoint, I think you can take 2.
Yeah, but it's just hard to get anybody you want as the second
I don't know.
Right.
So that's going to be interesting to see how they handle it. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, pretty much every few days, Brian. So there we go. How can people check out more of what you've got going on?
Yes, check me out on Locked On the Portal. You can find it YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your pods. Definitely doing a lot of shorts and different things on there. If you want to see video of kids going to Auburn or anywhere else, a kid that I'm hoping they get now, I don't know if we've talked about it yet. We will soon. Deshaun Spencer just blew up. He's another kid from Mobile area, plays at Saraland, had a great Under Armour camp. Talked a lot about him recently. I'm having a lot of fun with it. The portal is all recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal all day, every day. So check out the portal.
Yeah, and it's national, but there is a lot of Auburn on there. So be sure to give him some love for sure. For sure. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.